What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Soccer Wise. David Goff and Tommy, special guest, one of our favorites, Matt Doyle, with us for episode here as we approach Decision Day in MLS. Doyle, you got the full experience. I hit go live. There's a 5-second countdown. Tom likes to do the dumbest thing possible in the 5 seconds. Then he hits the mic while he then goes and does a different thing. And that's how we start our shows, fully professional.
Yeah, I mean, that's why podcasts have market-corrected drive time sports talk radio, because of productions like this one. Honestly, it feels like it's 1996, and I'm listening to Mike and the Dog again.
Let me tell you something. These ball players, they don't know how to bunt. They don't know how to bunt. It's a shame. It's a tragedy. Horace Wagner is rolling over in his grave. All right, I'll hang up and listen.
Tom liked that segment so much that he's like, we should make it recurring.
Every week.
And in a month and a half, he hasn't thought of a single other thing to say besides that players can't bunt. So he just does the
I want to
same
make
thing.
it about, Cam Scatterbo, he would have been the MVP in 1984. The team needs more ball players like this.
Oh, man, Tom, we're going to get canceled so fast, which is great because we're going to go over our over-unders from the preseason. So if anyone remembers, Doyle joined us in February. He set the line for every single MLS team in over-under because MLS no one really cares about. No one had set it outside of us, so we went and did it ourselves. Doyle set them up. We're going to go through what you did in terms of how you did setting the lines and then how we did picking over-unders on all of them. So by the end of this show, people will realize we don't know anything and they can turn off and not listen to us. Anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about college soccer because we got the white page from the NextGen.
Speaking of not knowing anything,
advisory group a little bit earlier today. So we're going to touch on that. It's obviously a topic I'm very intrigued by, and we had Sasho Surowski and Brian Weiss on a few weeks ago, and they talked about some things that they think will come to a vote. This group does not have any governing power, but they kind of put in writing most of what Sasho and Brian had talked about and potentially could come to fruition and change the way college soccer is set up going forward. And, of course, we've got Decision Day on the brink this weekend. Tom, I assume if you spun the camera around, there'd be like 38 TVs on the wall that you'll be using to watch.
Absolutely.
The screen setup in Brick, New Jersey is elite.
how far along are you with your setup?
I'll be honest. It's self-grading. I got to evaluate myself here. I didn't correctly the wall space far away to the recliner here. There's a couple monitors that are a little too small, and then I end up just standing up here like a crazy person watching some of the TVs like for the smaller ones. So
seems about
we're just gonna go back to the training ground. We're gonna analyze the tape, crunch the tape.
Standing up is actually better for your health, both short
it's
and
alpha
long
move,
term. So mental health as well. That's a good point because you want to live that alpha lifestyle, especially on a Saturday night when you're locked in your basement watching MLS. So it's the most important time to be alpha.
Doyle, Tom's an adult now. It's called an office. That's a shift
Yeah,
that's occurred in his life. It actually makes it respectable, if not honorable, that he's a small business owner trying to push the economy forward every single Saturday night with his skeets and Instagram posts and whatever else these kids these days do. We've had a really good stretch. It took us 45 minutes to start recording because we didn't know the mute buttons on our mics. None of us know how to do math. We couldn't figure out how to build a Google Doc. So
This was not high level math either. This was addition. We have struggled with addition.
Yeah.
So
that's not ideal.
Yeah, we are the cream of the crop right now. Let's start with Decision Day, and then we'll get into our over-unders. And I was curious what you guys are watching for. Obviously, we're all going to have 100 games on at the same time. I love it on Decision Day. I hate it every other day, but this is the day that I like it. 6 o'clock for the Eastern Conference games, 9 o'clock for the Western Conference games. And then, of course, NYCFC is playing Seattle, so that's at 6 o'clock, as well as NYCFC hosts a Western Conference team because nothing can actually line up and nothing actually works. Let's start with you, Doyle. What are you locked in for? What's going to be your highlight of the day?
There's going to be a lot to choose from, and I thought I would go snarky and dark, but I'm actually going to go in the other direction and say that I'm really looking forward to Nashville versus Inter Miami because I think this is the one clear matchup where it's two teams that can win MLS Cup and nobody should be surprised. And I know that maybe people don't perceive of Nashville like that, but you should. Nashville actually have the best underlying numbers in the entire league. They took in the U.S. Open Cup semis, they absolutely took Philly out behind the woodshed, and Philly, like, I thought Philly was going to go into the toilet for the rest of the year because they took that bad a beat in a game that they had put a lot into trying to compete, and Nashville said, you don't even have a chance. So Nashville, we know they can win big games. They have 2 match winners. They have a really good defense. Walker Zimmerman is getting healthier, and I think is probably going to be a starter on decision day and then into the playoffs, and they're just a much better team when Zimmerman is available. And then we know what Inter Miami is, right? They have Messi. Suarez is getting hot a little bit. But their defense has actually been a lot better than I think people give them credit for. If you look at their goals allowed this year, they're better than last year. But if you look at, especially at the underlying numbers, they are significantly better than last year. Like, their year-over-year improvement has been, I think top 3 or 4 in the league, like not to the same level as Nashville and Vancouver, but like just behind them. And now they've also made a big change in goal, where Rocco Rios Novo looks like he's the starter now. Like he's displaced Oscar Ustari, over the past 3 games, and like ever since that disaster against the Fire. And Rios Novo is he's a better goalkeeper than Oscar Ustari at this point. So like I'm really looking forward to that game in like a non-sarcastic, dead inside kind of way.
So, Doyle, you wrote this about Miami and kind of giving Javier Mascherano credit for some of the changes he made. And to your point about the underlying numbers, until you wrote that, I didn't realize it either. So Miami are better than FC Cincinnati and Charlotte FC in expected goals against by like 4 or 5 goals. And
yeah,
if you told me that before the season, I wouldn't have dignified it with an answer. I would have been like, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said. But like it's an important thing, because I keep going back to, like, I'm still worried about their transition defense, rest defense, those kind of things. Like, I still think that they're vulnerable there. But to your point, they're not, like, you can't even still say in hindsight that the Atlanta result was something that that we could have forecast seen coming. I think a lot of us had questions about the next round and when they played better teams. But I think this year, like, that is going to be very, very important. That should stabilize it. And if anything is even remotely close to equal, well, if your team has Lionel Messi, you're going to paper over a ton of cracks, and they have improved it. And I do think that's a really big storyline. It's a really big piece of analysis that not a lot of people were noticing. So kudos to you for bringing it to the forefront.
Yeah, I don't watch the games. I was just looking at the stats.
I thought you were going to do an actual acceptance speech.
I think it's unfortunate that Javier Mascherano does watch the game but doesn't look at the stats. In some way, that Ustari held on as starting goalkeeper for this team.
Yeah, I don't think that was Mascherano's decision. Man.
Oh, really?
I think that's the thing that like there's one guy who manages the personnel decisions with Inter Miami, and it's not somebody in the front office, and it's not the guy on the sideline. It's it's the guy wearing number 10. And I think that there had to be a reckoning at some point. And I think that's probably been the hardest part of Mascherano's job, has managing the personalities, which is probably the hardest part of any manager's job in MLS this year, or maybe ever, is getting everyone aligned in that locker room. And I have that from folks who have been in that locker room.
So what you're saying is...
God.
No, Tom, you can...
I was going to say...
Give us the inside scoop, Tom.
Yeah,
to put a point, I was just going to look at the numbers. That was going to be really underwhelming. Oscar Ustari is 4th worst in MLS in expected goals against versus your post-shot expected goals. And he's just behind Brad Guzan, Jonathan Bolland, and John Polskamp, who I think we've taken shots at all 3 of those. So it was high time for Ustari to get replaced. And to your points, I didn't think that it was actually going to happen for all the reasons you've laid out.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is Oscar Ustari is the Russell Westbrook of MLS, the star player
so much better
that they want. And once you get in there, you realize next championship, through to the dome, baby. Season on the verge. Let's go. Tom's chugging coffee. He couldn't even join me for that one. Just an excuse to bring it up. Just an excuse to say it. Mike,
my championship is Brad Stevens and Joe Maz shutting down both Jaylen Brown and Derek White by December 1st and being like, oh, no, it's tendinosis. They're both going to have to miss the next 6 months. I want 22 wins. I want a top 3
There's
draft.
no shot.
That is my championship.
Doyle, you'd have to put Joe Mazzulla in a straitjacket for that to have a chance. Like he wouldn't be able to be on the sidelines.
People might need to do that anyway. Like that
Can
might be a good recommendation.
Would you be willing
anyway.
to scrimmage Joe Mazzulla once
That's where I was
so
going.
He could crush you and get the feeling out of his body, and therefore he doesn't have to play the players?
He's such a cartoon character, but he's kind of likable. That was hilarious. That was
He's
such
amazing.
good content, and that they won 54-4. And a couple people were saying like
Do we
every
think there's an
league should do
MLS
that.
coach who would do it to us?
Let me tell you this. I don't want to give too many details because it's not my story to tell, but there was one team that mixed in staff in their media game, and a high-ranking sporting executive was definitely put himself on the other team to his most hated media member, and it was very clear that he wasn't trying to kick the crap out of him, which I actually thought was going to happen, but it was very clear he turned it up to 100 every time that there was a possible interaction to embarrass this person. So I think that would be really fun, even as long as nobody gets two-footed, but I think it'd be good.
I'm saying it's Pat Noonan. I think Pat Noonan's like, yeah, let's roll the ball out. Let's start playing. Let's high press each other. Let's see
Hold
what's
up,
happening.
Noonan and Kenny Arena? Like, God.
Exactly.
Be tough.
That's what I'm saying we're doing. I do know I think there was a combine basketball game that used to happen. So MLS combine, MLS coaches playing basketball. And I think Jay Heaps was considered the ringer of the whole thing because he played
That makes sense,
at
yeah.
Duke. But like, I'm pretty sure Jesse and Jim Curtin played in it and all of them. And maybe we could have hung a little bit in that game more than playing soccer.
No,
I could not. Just to
No,
be
I
clear,
couldn't.
I could not hang in any physical contest against a professional athlete in any setting. I would not put myself in that scenario because I'm pretty sure if I went on the field, there are 30 MLS head coaches and 30 sporting directors who would be willing to 2-foot me, and I would not blame a single one of them.
I get the verbal 2 foots on Doyle's behalf from sporting directors routinely.
Hey, Tom, at least they don't think it's you. At least they don't say, they're like, why did you say this? I don't know. I've never said that before in my life. Couldn't even figure out a place where I would have said it.
Tom's too much of a beta to actually give opinions. He's just publishing press releases. That's all he's doing.
What's Tom's voice, Doyle? Do you know Tom's voice?
This is actually AI.
Oh boy.
It's actually AI. It could be AI if you want it to be. Tom, what is your most intriguing storyline that you're watching for on Decision Day? Speaking of betas.
The answer should be the wild card race out west, but I don't have any juice for that because these teams are stumbling over each other and falling and trying to crawl to the finish line. I think everybody but Dallas is like, if you combine like their last 6 results, it's like 4 wins out of their last 18 games for the other 3 teams, and then Dallas are without Musa and Farrington. So I don't know. Atlanta did upset Miami last year, but I think all of this is just to see who gets to play a couple more games for the playoffs and be the sacrificial lamb to Vancouver. So I'm going to go even lower down the table. The spoon race. And how perfect that we get Atlanta DC United on the final day of the season to decide the spoon. You couldn't have scripted that any better. And it's just, this is one of the worst single seasons in MLS history relative to expectation. Possibly the worst, given that Atlanta spent more money than any team in MLS history over the last 2 transfer windows. And for it to all end up like this, it's just disaster.
To the conversation me and McKelly had a bit on Monday, is Mateus Click the MVP of Major League Soccer? Is he the most impactful player to have 2 teams roster him this year and be competing for his spoon? You have to ask the question if he is the most impactful player or signing in Major League Soccer right now.
I don't think you do. I think you needed to workshop that bit a little bit more. I think there was a different angle to take with that one, but I think he gave a good. I thought Mateus Click gave a good interview a couple weeks ago with
Yeah.
like it was a Polish outlet, I want to say, right?
Yeah.
This is
Where he
your
said that
territory, Doyle.
Seattle was the end of the world.
He also said Messi was in charge of everything that happened in Miami, including starting Oscar Ustari, who I'm sure Mateus Click could not name and does not know who plays goalkeeper for Inter Miami, which is probably part of the film session
He never
issues.
crossed midfield this year, so like, how would he know?
That is very, very true. I was going to say the Western Conference wildcard race, and then Tom made it sound terrible, so now I feel like a crazy person for saying it. It would be the most Major League Soccer thing ever if FC Dallas, without both of their starting strikers, went to Vancouver and somehow got a result.
Yep.
I said this to Michele on Monday. There's going to be a 35-minute span where like San Jose all of a sudden is going to be in 6th somehow, magically.
I think San Jose's getting in.
Yeah, that's what he said as well. So you think Colorado loses an RSL or Dallas?
Colorado can't stop anybody
at LAFC.
Colorado's at home.
Yeah,
right.
Sorry, home to LAFC.
Yeah, but it's
Either
LAFC, and they can't stop anybody in transition, and it's Son and Denny Bouanga, and it's like that. They're giving up 4.
How many minutes do you think Son plays?
Oh, it's a good question, actually.
I think Bouanga plays because he wants to win the Golden Boot.
Yeah,
and he's a cyborg that does not ever get tired.
Right.
Yeah, right.
He's like, I might fly to Gabon midweek just to come back, just to see how.
I feel like Abobasi played well enough where it's like, okay, you give him the first 55 minutes and then you bring Son on for the final 30-35 if he's cool with it. Go ahead.
Doyle, is there any scenario in which Abobasi could be part of the starting front three, or do you think that there's no balance and it doesn't make sense?
No, I mean, I don't. I think if you do that, then you're pushing either Son or Bouanga out to their weaker side, and you don't like Son is a forward at this point in his career, and Bobasi's a really good backup who could maybe start next year on the right team, but like whatever, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I think that LAFC is going to go to Colorado and win, especially because like they're incentivized to really go for it because of the standings. I think that RSL have been they're charging up the standings with 3 wins in their last 10, and that's somehow been able to pull themselves over the line. But like they're going to St. Louis, and St. Louis has not been bad recently, and they score their goals off of midfield turnovers, and San Jose cannot get out of their own way in central midfield. They just give teams runouts time after time after time, and that leaves San Jose at home against an Austin team that
nothing to play for.
Yeah, nothing to play for. I know they got that point or the 3 points against LAFC, but I wasn't super impressed by him. Like Joseph could go out there and have a brace, and Chicho get another, and it's a 3-1 to San Jose, and suddenly the Quakes are back in. Like that, it's like that's. I think that's what's going to happen. I really think that's like the Quakes are going to get into the wildcard game, and they're going to lose 4-0 to Musa, a pissed off Musa and Logan Farrington, the greatest strike duo in the world.
Yeah, I think that would be the most like Dallas being in the wild card game. I think would be a fun outcome. San Jose as well, just because all of their games are crazy. It doesn't matter who they play and what they do. So I think for like a neutral, and that's like again Colorado. Like I do like some of the things Colorado do, but they've just really run out of steam here on the second half of the season. And Real Salt Lake, I like much more in theory than in practice. Like Juan Cruz hasn't settled yet, and Diego Luna is the star that they built it all around. And so having him in a knockout game would be fun, but I don't know, like Dallas getting Musa back and Farrington back. If they do get into the wild card game, I'm still very surprised that they didn't win that appeal. I do like not inside reporting to say that they're disappointed, but like they felt extremely confident that this was going to get overturned.
Folks, to give us
they said
like that.
They said that like their kind of video analysis, everything, they were assuming like this isn't going to be a debate. Like he's obviously going to get overturned, and they were really upset that the independent panel.
It was a good job of shithousing by Cuevas. Like he really sort of goaded Farrington into participating with that, and I honestly didn't think Farrington did anything wrong, but like he put himself
a couple kicks in.
I don't think he actually did that.
I think it should have gotten overturned.
Yeah. No, it's a bummer, but makes it more interesting, I guess.
So that's the Western Conference wildcard race, which will be fun to watch in the 9 o'clock games. I think for me, in the 6 o'clock window, it's that fight for 4th in the East. There's not a lot to decide between these teams, Charlotte, NYCFC, Nashville, and Orlando. And I think in a 3-game series, having 2 of the home games will probably be the difference. And so I'm curious to see what Philly rolls out there. Like the whole conversation we had last week about where this team stands all time is the assumption that they get up to 69 points, have that nice season, and put themselves in a slightly more historical conversation. If they don't, like, great, they won the Shield, it's theirs, but I don't know how this season stands up against other ones as you go forward. And so it may not matter.
I'm saying that genuinely. That wasn't like me making fun of you. Like, genuinely, like, I don't think for me that we're gonna go back and talk of like if they had 69 points versus 66. Like,
I think 2 points per game is a real, like, in my mind, that's a delineation.
Yes,
okay,
right?
All right, then that's fair.
Because I remember when
think about FC Dallas's Shield versus Toronto's Shield.
Right.
Those are gaps in how you think of them.
When Toronto won that Shield, we were tracking it like, oh, this is the first time since the 2005 Quakes that somebody's been over 2 points per game, something like that. And then they finished off the story by winning MLS Cup as well. And like, that's going to be the real measure with Philly. If they can follow up a Shield win with just even getting to the Cup final, that would be huge for them.
It also, if they don't play people this week, it would be like 2+ weeks without playing competitive games for their players going into.
They got to sharpen the knife, man. Like, for real, especially because Charlotte is like a real playoff team. Like, this is going to be something that matters, and you can't throw this in the trash just because you locked up first place.
Yeah, and then obviously, as I said, for all these teams fighting for that 4th spot is super interesting. Having those 2 home games, it was the difference in a bunch of the series over the last 2 years of like the team that limped through had 2 of the home games and was able to get over the line. Orlando's been an example of that against Charlotte, literally. So they've understood that and they've experienced that. So I think that's going to be really interesting to watch. Let's dig into our over-unders now. And let's start big picture, Doyle, on the process. Setting up the numbers. Like, besides
in
our
a dungeon
picks,
somewhere.
How do you feel about the way you set this up going into the season?
So I feel really good about it because I've been saying nothing, but I feel really good about how the lines turned out. So what I did to measure it is like how good the lines were is I took the like Vegas sports books preseason wins total over unders for MLB and NBA, and then I took I think it was Fox or ESPN, whatever, one of the big sports outlets that covers the NFL. I took their expert predictions for wins total over unders for the NFL just to compare how experts do and compare how sports books do. And I was significantly better than the Fox football experts at drawing lines.
And
I was
stiffed Fox.
Absolutely. And I was worse than the sports books doing NBA and MLB lines.
Because your kneecaps didn't rely on it.
Right. But like not by a ton. And the way I calculated this was using standard deviation and Z-score. So standard deviation for all of you who have forgotten your middle school. Oh, Tom knows. Go ahead. Explain it, Tom.
I'm saying Z-score. Why do you watch 11 guys on the field? Are you saying number?
Tom's math is you got 12 bags of concrete. I need to fill in your backyard. I bring 12 bags of concrete, and that's what I do.
So the Z-score measures the average standard deviation from the mean win total or points total in this case that the team is. So the Sportsbook's Z-score for MLB this year was 0.86. The Sportsbook's Z-score for NBA last year was 0.96. My Z-score is about 1.3. We won't have the actual one until after the season. The Z-score for the Fox experts on the NFL was like 1.8. So I was actually closer to the sports books. And also, none of the points totals for my teams were more than 2 standard deviations from the mean. Whereas for the sports books, the Brewers were 3 standard deviations from the mean for MLB, and then there was one. I don't remember the other one.
Brewers were a wider margin than you had San Diego or Philadelphia.
Correct. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
'Cause that seemed. I mean,
That seemed really bad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I was pretty happy with all of that, but like the bottom line is that you can't beat Vegas, so don't try too hard, because then you'll end up with broken kneecaps.
So the way you did it was you eyeballed it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you eyeballed last year. You thought where you thought these teams fell in the standings, and then you tried to set numbers on that.
Exactly that, but I realized I knew my audience, and I knew my degenerate gamblers who would be doing this exercise with me.
Set the trap.
So I preyed on what I saw as your predilections, and that gave me more insight into how Vegas 100%.
Yeah, like how the Knicks and the Lakers always have expanded,
yeah.
worse NBA cup,
NBA
championship odds.
Like Red Sox fans, Dodgers fans always hit the over. Like if you look at the numbers on any of those gambling apps, like 85% of the action is on the over, and it's because fans love their teams in the
Life's too short
so
to bet the under.
Hits it. Yeah, absolutely. Especially
I was
if you bet it too much
inside.
and miss too many times, then suddenly you're on the run. Yeah.
I was inside Hard Rock
Burning my
Casino
fingerprints off.
yesterday watching T-Pain live, 20-year anniversary. Shout out to T-Pain for 20 great years. And I was trying to get a bet in as I'm sitting there being like, I got to experience it. And the line kept shifting on me, and I would have had it right, but they wouldn't let me keep the line. And you know what? I'm not going to be bullied. I'm not going to be bullied by Hard Rock and the Seminole County or whatever's going on in there. It is the most Florida experience you could possibly have. It was a wildlife experience. All right, let's go into then how we did in all of this.
Pretty good.
And to be clear, this is what we were tabulating. Each of us were supposed to do someone else's score. Doyle can't count to 30, but yeah, can do standard
I can make really good lines.
deviation math. So I would like to know who he used for all of this research, because there's no way he did this himself. Show yourself, America soccer analysis nerds who are assisting Doyle
100%. 100%.
on the side. I calculated Tom's, and for everyone out there, there are 3 teams that are still open. We do not know where they're going to fall on the over-under on the lines.
Which again, 10% of those lines. So that means 10% of the lines are still open going into the final weekend. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that is pretty good. And that's good math as well on the fly with the 10% thing. So
It's just addition that gives me trouble, man.
We're continuing to crush it. I calculated Tom's, and Tom finished so far with 15 correct over-under predictions and 12 incorrect with the 3 still open.
And listen, my office is still going through the numbers, and there might be some protests because I actually thought that was 27-3, but I digress, and we're gonna get to the bottom of this.
Well, you guarantee that.
I don't know how many absentee votes that you submitted there, so we're just gonna fair and balanced process and make sure that everything's correct.
This is going to be one of our most fun shows and darkest shows at the same time by the time we get done with this. So the 3 open, you could finish on 18. It seems unlikely. And the 3 open for everyone, for all of us, are Portland, Columbus, and San Jose. So all of them still sitting on their lines. I can read it out this way because I wrote it down. Columbus on 51 points. Doyle set the line at 53.5. So anything besides a victory this weekend means they would fall under. Portland are on 44 points. Doyle sent the line at 45.5. And San Jose are currently sitting on 38, and you had the line at 38.5.
Yeah.
So if San Jose makes the playoffs, your line's a little bit more off than if they lose and they don't make the playoffs or they tie. And then you'd be the half point off for both of that. So that's Tom's numbers, 15-12 with the 3 unchecked. Doyle, I think was calculated by Tom.
I checked these multiple times hoping that I was wrong. Doyle is 16-11 with those 3 open.
It's pretty good. So does that mean I made bad lines? Right, because if I'm trying to act
insider
as a
trading,
house, I don't want the gamblers to be so
small
far
sample size
above
here.
500. Okay, fair enough. All We'll open it up.
And the
year.
example of why you did
Yes.
okay is, what was my score?
You were 13, 14, and 3. Though we've had to send that back for a recount several times. So right now,
The Florida votes are still coming in, of course.
it looks like you're under 500. So you're gonna have to get a fifth podcast to make a little extra scratch.
I am going to assume that I'm going to hit on all three of those, and that's actually because my lines are different than yours.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get
We
to it.
agreed on 2 of those 3. So Columbus and San Jose, we all have the same pick. The only one where like the standings could change is on Portland. Because I went over, you guys went under.
Okay,
Oh,
don't go
alright.
Portland. Anti-Portland now. I was about to say go Portland, go Timbers. In that, let's go through each one and see if we have some comments on each one. We're going to start.
Let me just say, there was a visceral reaction to some of these where you think now it's like, oh, obviously I was under on this team, and just like the gut punch of like, oh, what was the number for Atlanta? And I said what? Oh.
Do you guys want to start at the bottom or the top?
Doyle's choice.
Let's start at the bottom.
Okay, let's
All right, Drake.
go to the basement. We start with Toronto FC, 33.5 points. All 3 of us went under. That was correct. And it turns out that if you set a record streak for ties, you still don't get a lot of points. So you end up under on that one. The next one was DC United at 36.5
Wait,
points.
let me give you. Let me go back and give you some of my thought process on where I set the line for them real quick. For Toronto, I actually picked them as the spoon team at the start of the year, but usually
Little
the
did
spoon.
you know. The race to
right.
the bottom.
Oof. The spoon winner is usually much lower than this line. But
Yeah.
I kind of knew if I drew the line any lower than it was, it would end up being kind of an easy over. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
In the end, there's a chance 7 teams finish below this line. The
Yeah.
only team that can get over it is St. Louis on 31 points right now, where if they beat RSL at home in the final game, they'd finish on 34, right above. Otherwise, 7 teams in Major League Soccer are going to be below the line that we set as just a barrier for the worst team in MLS coming into the year, which is going to inform a lot of what we're about to talk about in these next few teams. DC United, our first disagreement, 36.5 points. Me and Tom went over. Doyle went under. And boy, did Doyle knock that one out of the park. Tom, you want to talk about your confidence about DC United?
Not really.
Okay, cool.
Do you guys maybe want to apologize to your listeners for picking
No,
DC
there's
to go
plenty more to
over?
apologize. The next team is where I want to apologize.
Oh, that's a good point. The next team, 1 point more, is San Diego FC. Third worst in Major League Soccer was the prediction at 37.5 points.
God.
And all 3 of us went under on a team that may finish first in the Western Conference. They could finish on 63 points, almost 30 points better than this mark. Tom, you'd like to start with the apologies?
Yeah, that's tough. My worries about this team coming into the season were the question marks along the back line and in goal. CJ Dos Santos had not been a starting goalkeeper in the league yet. I liked the signing of Patty McNair, but outside of that, I had significant question marks along the back line, and I thought that they were going to be fun going forward and score goals, but ultimately weren't going to be consistent enough defensively, and that has proven to be incorrect. CJ Dos Santos has been really good. Patty McNair, really good. Chris McVeigh, really good. And Luca Bombino, really good, just to name a few that, like, all of those question marks got filled with not just, like, good, but great on a few of those.
And then
and that's where it came.
Manu Dua
Yes,
coming in
at the second half of the season.
mid-season
Correct.
And elevating the defense to a level where they could still get results even as the attack cooled off. It's just a really complete team. They're still missing a number 9, which, you know,
He plays for Philly now.
there's some discourse about that. But like
Number 9s are antiquated, Doyle. That's like the mute button on your mic. Don't worry about it.
I mean, Tyler Heaps, he did a masterclass in putting
Absolutely,
this roster.
absolutely.
Like he made one mistake, right? And it's what happened in July when they didn't retain Milan Iloski. And Mikey Varas, any other year would be such an easy vote. Such an easy vote for manager of the year, but he's going to be second for me this season.
Me too.
Would Heaps be your executive of the year?
Yeah, like, and no disrespect to, what folks in Vancouver and Philly and, a few other spots have done. But yeah, what Tyler Heaps did is incredible.
It is obviously then one of the biggest gaps between the teams we picked and the expectations going into the season where they finish. They will they will have an MVP finalist. They will have a Coach of the Year finalist. They will have an Executive of the Year.
Do we really think that Anders Dreyer is going to be an MVP finalist?
Yeah, you think he won't be top 3?
I think Messi is guaranteed to be top 3. I think Bouanga is. Yeah. He 100% has the narrative at this point.
And who else?
And then it's Evander, Sam Surridge. Like,
I'd be shocked if Surridge finished above Dreyer.
Dreyer is very firmly my number 2 in this MVP race, so I'm firmly expecting him to be on the finalist list, and he should be.
Okay.
And he's going to win Newcomer of the Year.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree that he should be on the list. I'm just not sure he's David said it with his chest. Like, they have an MVP finalist. It's like, okay, if it was a 5-person MVP race, then you could say
I will be shocked if he is not a finalist. And based off my predictions of San Diego's season 7 months ago, I always know what I'm talking about in advance. I'm never shocked by what happens. And shout out to El Trafico Radio. It says, morning to my fellow MLS shills. Let's go to our next team, tied on points. Sporting Kansas City. All 3 of us went under on Sporting KC on 37.5 points. We were all correct.
That was one of my strongest feelings. There's again, in hindsight, I felt really, really confident in that.
Yeah. They spent a lot of money bringing in Garcia and Sharpie Suleimanov and, of course, Dejan Joveljic. And even with that, it was pretty obvious that this team's broken.
They haven't had a 6er center back since Ikopara at center back.
Since Andrew Wiebe played for the team.
Right. Honestly, and again, both things can be true. The Dejan Joveljic signing has been excellent. And that's a very, very good thing, and it's going to set them up in the future. It didn't address what they needed this offseason, and that doesn't mean that the funds for Joveljic should have went somewhere else. No, that they should have signed Joveljic and then also a 6 and a center back.
If they had just followed us, then they could have helped Peter Vermees move on. Preseason, it all would have been easier for Sporting Kansas City.
By the way,
taken our advice.
David Lee, new CSO, coming from NYCFC. Sporting KC need a 6 and a center back. Justin Hack, NYCFC, plays 6 and a center back and is a free agent.
Yep.
Oof. That is the least interesting conspiracy theory a sports league could ever have going on.
It's not a conspiracy. It's just
a conspiracy. It's a free agent.
It's just crystal ball looking at potential free agents. I think he's the best one.
Brooklyn native Justin Hack, by the way. I used to see him playing at Pier 5.
Nice.
Yeah. Getting a little a game in before the co-ed leagues took over and the real games started on the Pier 5 field. Let's move to San Jose. This is the one we don't know yet. 38.5 points. They're on 38. All 3 of us had the under. So there's a chance we're all right. There's a chance we're not. We just talked about them for a little while and their opportunity to make the postseason.
Let me just real quick. Almost a 20-point year-over-year improvement from this team. And if you look at the underlying numbers, their improvement is in line with what Miami did, just a little bit below what Nashville and Vancouver did. I think this is going to be an easy, going into next season, they're going to be 15 points better. Right? I'm going to draw the line. I'm going to draw the line for San Jose next year at 49.5.
Well, that's 9. That's 9 points.
I know, so. But your reaction when you were like, you really think so?
Well, because you said 15, that puts them at third of the.
Well, I'm not going to draw the line at 54.5, but if it this feels to me all right, Bruce figured some stuff out, and year 2, he knows how to win this league.
So 2 things. One, I got asked. I did a Reddit AMA yesterday if a new owner would bring in a new coach, where I said absolutely not. Would be my assumption, because Bruce wins and most owners who take over a soccer team don't know soccer. Bruce Arena's maybe the only coach they've ever heard of, or would be on a short list.
Yeah, just no shot there.
But in terms of the continued growth, I wonder if the ceiling is the big jump is bringing in DPs and like spending actual money and going and get talent. And then that next gap is like you have to get the smaller things right to make the next jump for them. And I don't know that I have as much confidence in that as I did in
I trust Bruce on that end particularly. Do you see how good Bolaru's been this season? You can kind of go on down the list of some of their, I guess, pleasant surprises in terms of guys making contributions, and I think that that's just going to continue year over year. And with hopefully one more DP get that right. We'll see what happens with the attackers and how that all gets situated. But the foundational point, starting with Christian Espinoza, Chicho Rango, like that's solid. And then again, you throw in Bolaru and you throw in some of the young players that I quite like, Daniel and the goalkeeper. So there's a lot here.
One of the things that the Sounders have done really well, and Brian Schmetzer plays a big role in this, is like they will turn over their staff every 4 or 5 years and say, okay, this is where we're a little deficient and this is what we need to improve. And just looking at this, the way that San Jose have played, like they need to get aggressive about bringing in a defensive coordinator, essentially, for especially for their rest defense and for their transition defense. Just that alone is, I think, 8 or 10 easy points, just being better against the ball. And part of that is going to have to be, Bruce needs to choose between Joseph and Chicho Rango. You can't have both of those guys up top, because if you do, then you're the easiest team in the world to build through. But still, I like that. Like we're right on the bubble for this one, going into decision day.
I think
defensive
Aaron
coordinator
Glenn
Wink Martindale's available. Dial up a few blitzes here.
I was gonna say Aaron Glenn. I thought you were gonna come after me, Tom. So
that's why you tried to talk
first.
over.
Before you got there. This is, for me, probably the most embarrassing one coming up. The Philadelphia Union. We had them preseason predicted, or Doyle had the line set at 41.5 points. So for context, RSL and Colorado are on 40 right now, and Dallas is on 41. Everyone in the Eastern Conference that's in a playoff spot is way above this. And you both picked over, and I went with the under. And I think my reasoning on the underside was I didn't think anything would improve. I didn't feel like the team was very different, and I didn't think year one under a new coach would be that drastic difference. I think Tom told me about 100 times, they're going to dial it up. They're going to go to the press. They're going to dial it up. They're going to go to the press.
I was right.
You may have been right on this one.
May have? What do you qualify that?
I mean, final week hasn't happened yet. I don't know. Things could change. They could fall into a hole and lose 30 points.
Obviously, I didn't expect them to win the Shield. Literally nobody did. But I felt really strongly about this one too, that there was going to be a baseline and a really high floor because of that. And you kind of look at the attack. This was set when they had Daniel Gazdag, and then they traded him in April and then got better, or kept getting better. Ty Baribo, Bruno Dambiani has been good. Mikael Uhre is still there. Like, the attack is just so, again, like Baribo hasn't even been a full-time starter all the time now at the end of the season. He was in the Golden Boot race, and they're still getting goals. They're still getting wins. And the defensive foundation and just how incredible Macanya's been, partnering with former MLS Defender of the Year in Jacob Glesnes, like that is what starts it all for them. And all these players fit the system, and that's why I thought that the floor was very high.
So was this a bad line because it's so much it's so far off?
That's what Morgan's saying. Morgan's saying even as a Philly fan who wasn't super confident, this felt way too low.
Right.
But I went under, so clearly
so
it was
that makes it a pretty good line.
Yeah.
I wonder if I had set it at like 44.5.
I still would have went over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
and I'm not. It's easy to say that now.
Sharp. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Tom,
no, like that.
Right. No matter what you said.
That was one of the takes I was all in on.
Tom
preseason.
always puts the Supporters Shield winner preseason before over 40 points.
Tom,
I considered Atlanta in my shield pick before the season. So
quick,
again, I'm not just taking W's here.
Philadelphia Union over under final 67.5.
I'm gonna go over. Because for all your points, like they're gonna treat this game seriously because there is no incentive to not because of the bye. Because of the time that
was my point. Tom,
game.
I'm the one on the left. He's the one on the right.
Did I thought I was using the royal you of just like every.
Oh, I thought that was a Doyle.
That was the Usted form, right?
Got it. Perfect. Okay, so moving from Philly, the next one we have 3 teams tied on 41.5 points. We have the New England Revolution and we have Nashville SC. Those are 2 very different conversations. New England, 41.5 points. Me and Tom went over. Doyle went under. So Doyle was in this space where he was just goading us on all of these picks. New England's finishing right now. They're on 35 points, so they have no shot at this one. And then Nashville at 41.5. Both of you went under, and I went over with confidence that things would get better.
What made you guys think a Caleb Porter team was going to get better in year 2? Because this was like, I actually like this roster.
That's what I liked.
My under was just a bet against Caleb.
I thought they were going to be in the playoff mix. I forget if I had them over the line or not. So I figured 41.5, like even if they're in the mix and don't get there, like the Red Bulls right now are on 43 points. They're out of the playoffs. I thought that was going to be a New England spot. Even if they missed, they would be the first team out. So
it felt like they had brought in coherent center backs, and that if you gave and that if you gave enough runners off Carlos Heel, that the floor should have been 41 points.
Yeah.
That was the feeling. And if they win this weekend, which they might, then they're 3 points behind and
So it's a good line.
Yeah, it's a good line. On Nashville, what made you guys so sure you were not confident about a team that has won this the U.S. Open Cup and could finish on 55 points?
I was worried about again, I thought that there was good signs under BJ Callahan last season, but that didn't really turn into results. They didn't have a ton of flexibility this winter. The Walker Zimmerman, the over-under for his games played is always a question mark, and I thought that he was going to be somebody that if they missed him for as much as they did this season, that the wheels would fall off. So I was wrong about all of that. It's been a really, really good season for Nashville, and we got a best 11 caliber season for Hani Mukhtar. And again, this time in preseason, Sam Surridge was, are they going to sell him in the summer so they can buy a new DP?
Right.
And he's been one of the best forwards in the league.
Yeah. And I wasn't sure about their central midfield upgrades. The point we were making in the line, we thought that Gaston Brugman was going to have to play 2,500 minutes. Yazbek hadn't been at all impressive. Nobody knew who Eddie Tagseth was. There just didn't seem to be room for the type of improvement that we've seen from this team. BJ Callahan is like in that Mikey Varas thing where it's like, almost any other year, he would be strong consideration for coach of the year, not just for the underlying number improvement and young players improving and obviously points per game and a freaking trophy, but just culturally, the way they play, the way they use young players, be it from the academy or guys like Matthew Corcoran, who they sort of, found on the bargain bin, stuff like that. Everything he's pushed almost every right button. Just a fantastic job. And it's one of the teams that I'm most excited to watch this winter because they actually do have a little bit of flexibility. They do have probably an open DP slot with Walker Zimmerman's contract expiring. And, are they able to get him back on a temp? All of this is at play, but they're just in such a good spot right now. It makes it fun to think about. Whereas 8 months ago, it was really depressing to think about this Nashville team.
And one of the stories coming into the season was they just hadn't hit on international signings at all. And that felt like a front office issue. And now that feels like a Gary Smith issue, which opens the door to more ways for them to improve because it doesn't just have to be an in-league move and an in-league transfer. Obviously, I nailed this one, so you guys are welcome. The next one, CF Montreal.
One more thing. This is the team that I want to see by Nico Sakiris. I think he just makes so much sense as a ball progressor and a chance creator. So that Hani's a 10, but just let him be a second forward. I don't ever want to see Hani dropping into the midfield next year. And I think having Sakiris kind of dictating things, he's the one who makes the most sense to me.
Yeah, his game's similar to Schaffelberg and Alex Wheel. So you're kind of just slotting in similar personalities across that. Not at all, but it would be awesome to see him get some serious minutes.
I think that you can only do that with the U22 slot, and they don't have it.
To give him the contract that he would want to be moved.
From everything, from acquisition cost, contract, all of that. I don't think that you can get this player without a U22 slot.
But you could open up a DP slot and go to a 2-4-2 build.
Yeah, Walker Zimmerman. Yeah. I still think he stays.
Okay. had a pretty good U20 World Cup as well. Let's go to CF Montreal. 42.5 points. They obviously are going to finish way below this. Me and Tom were both on the under. Doyle was on the over. Doyle, I get it. You are excited about the fantasy MLS sickos team, but the Saputo power is stronger than that, and there's nothing we can do about it. The Chicago Fire, 43.5 points. All three of us went on the over there. Chicago Fire are currently on 52 points with the potential to jump out of the wild card spot. Like, they have that power this weekend and have finished really, really strong on the season.
This was a stupid line. This is
one of the, but this one was one of the tough ones, which was like, we don't know what it looks like yet.
Really? I don't know how I ended up this low, because I think we're all very high. We're all big believers in Greg Berhalter. Even though he went about it this year in a completely different way than I expected. I thought he would fix the defense first, and they would be kind of boring, and then eventually get around to fixing the attack. It has been complete opposite of that. But like in retrospect, this line should have been like 48.5. I think that would have given all three of us something to squirm about.
I still think that was fair. There were plenty of questions. We hadn't seen it yet. We didn't know if they were going to use their DP spot. They ended up not using their DP spot. Despite the chases for Neymar and Kevin De Bruyne, both of which were very real, of course. And yeah, to your point, Doyle, I thought it was like it ends up that opening weekend was a harbinger for the rest of their season. Like they beat Columbus 4-2 or whatever, and that was my view too. That it was like, oh, they're just gonna try to be boring. Can you
remember opening weekend? I can't remember single games, man.
I remember that one because I thought that was gonna be again like. To typify the season of hey, we're just going to play possession and it's going to be slow and we're going to be cautious because we don't have the defenders that we probably quite want yet to do the game model that we want. And instead it was wide open. Bamba looked really good, but Zinkernagel, that was, I forget if he had debuted or not yet, but that was, again, a sign of things to come for Chicago in that this was going to be an attack first type team and a fun team.
They're 4-1-1 in their last 6 games in MLS. So of the 15 wins, 4 of them have come in the last month or so. So it's come on later on for them, but they're going to blow that number out of the water. Aaron Ginsberg says, are we really going to let Doyle skate on that CF Montreal take? I don't want to spend more time on the Saputos sucking as owners and meddling with teams and making them worse. So, yeah, that's the reality of what we're going to do. FC Dallas, 44.5 points. All three of us went on the over with this one, and I guess we all had a lot of confidence in Eric Quill at the time, and they're on 41 points. So if they somehow miraculously go to Vancouver without both of their starting strikers and the best player on the team, and they win, they'll fall a half point. Yeah, they'll fall a half point behind this. This was clearly some Lucho love at the time.
Yep. Yes.
And it was the Lucho Musa connection. So the fact that the season ended with the reason they won't make the playoffs if they don't, or have in any way been in trouble, is because of Lucho's presence, is pretty comical on all of us.
Yep.
They had a run of, I believe it was 10 of 11 unbeaten, pretty much exactly when they sold Lucho.
Yeah, I wonder if we should have read more into the guy who's like stands outside the locker room, says he doesn't want to be there anymore after taking a newspaper ad out saying he can't wait to be there, being like a negative on a team that he plays inside of. Maybe we should have read that a little bit better. Although, in fairness, Evander's done pretty well in Cincinnati.
Yeah,
so
this happens all the time.
On who and where. Let me do this one real quick because we haven't done Dallas's offseason because they haven't been eliminated. Do we think Petar Musa plays for this team next year?
I sure hope so. I think so too. So there was like, where does he go back to Europe from here that he kind of either already hasn't done? Unless he goes to Premier League, which again, I'm a big fan of Peter Musa's. I don't see that happening. Maybe a top of the championship type club could pay the money that Dallas are paying him. But like, he's on really good money.
Dallas wouldn't sell if that's the case, right? Because they're not going to make money off that deal if we're putting.
How much did they pay for him?
10 million.
So they would need to
15 million. Why not?
Because he's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying. Well, and listen, they didn't want to sell Alan Velasco either, but that happened when Brian Reynolds was sold. They didn't want to sell him at the time they did.
But if
Peter Musa says I want to go, what do you do?
That part I understand. If he's pushing his way out, I would say on Velasco, nothing on the field, at least recently, health-wise, had proven that he was going to be worth that number ever again. Where Musa, it feels like you're not talking about a one-time offer that a Club World Cup induced paycheck is going to double down on and all of that. I would be fascinated if someone, let's just say a team in Major League Soccer, like was like, you know what? We spent a lot of money on a center forward in the championship who's not that good. He's not on a team anymore, but we're willing to spend the money still. I mean, you could talk 25 or 30 million.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think 15 is a Godfather offer for Petar Musa, but like 23 might be.
Yeah, which would be fascinating to see in the cash for error. The next team is the team right below them in the postseason right now. Standings, RSL, 44.5 points. All three of us went under on this one, so all three of us will hit on this. I don't know that this roster looks now like we thought it would in the preseason, but all three of us were correct about the way this would work out.
This was a 59. This is a 59-point team last year.
Yeah.
Like
what?
It's baffling, right? To remember that RSL were that good, but a lot that came before they sold.
Yeah.
Was it Andres Gomez?
Gomez and
like, they never.
And then Chichito suspended.
Yeah, they never. That's right. Jeez, I forgot that was last year. Like they never figured out how to replicate any of that. Xavier Goza has been really good, but it's just I don't know. They lost so much of who they were when those guys disappeared for one reason or another, and then they've also lost the ability to control central midfield, and that's always been my concern with Pablo Mastroeni teams. Anyway, sorry for the aside. Keep going.
No. The next team is the Portland Timbers on 44.5. Tom is on the over, and us two are on the
good
unders.
Coming into the summer when they had the results, and then they just added like three really good, or what they hope to be three really good players, and they've stalled out a little bit here. I still believe.
Is this in line with your golden boot drafting of the Portland Timbers number 9 that never got signed?
That was last year.
I know. I'm saying there's a lot.
He did get signed.
There's a lot of belief in future Timbers signings.
One win in their last 9 here, 2 in their last like 12 or 13. It's unfortunate.
Veld right now is probably on a Goss Theorem situation for next year.
He looks like a player.
Yeah, there's soccer in him, but none of it connects right now. It doesn't connect with his teammates, and it doesn't connect in general. And I think in that, DaCosta will be a very good 1.5 or 1A or 1B if that's what it ends up being, which is I think an ideal setup for him. So this would be the one that would shift our score going forward because it's the only one of the open ones that we were different on. So Tom is currently rooting for Portland, and we're rooting for San Diego in this game if that's what we care about. St. Louis City, the next one, 45.5. Me and Tom went over, and Doyle went under. This was, to me, very much the end of the year run in 2023. Belief in that, belief in cohesion over unknown teams. And this is one of my issues every offseason, which is the teams that are bringing more pieces back that I've seen and have some belief in, I will choose over new pieces because it takes a lot for new pieces to fit together, and it takes latency and all that type of stuff. And you don't know how many points you're going to build at that situation. St. Louis since then has fired their sporting director and has gone into a complete turmoil, have an interim coach, everything else going on with this club. So they've now fired, 2 coaches in less than a year span, and they're on their second interim coach, and they will not fall over this line.
So my rationale here was very similar to the Philadelphia stuff, because I just thought that St. Louis would be like, oh, we played really well using this system and style that we've been talking about since creating the club. We bought all of the players to play high pressing transition. Let's hire a coach that wants to play high pressing and transition. And then Olaf Melberg just had the most boring, impotent style of like they had a couple clean sheets early in the season because they were starting, 6 center backs and 3 defensive midfielders and then Marcel Hartl. So I still think the process was right on our end, because why would you change the system that has been working well? Why would you change the system that you've been so public about? This is how we want to play. This is how we're going to play.
Wait, had the system been working well, though?
Better than 45.5 points, yeah.
I don't think so. Like, they had a good first half season. And
then a good second half of last year.
Yeah,
they played in a playoff.
They were overperforming their underlying significantly under John Hackworth, and it wasn't high pressing, right? It was more like transition, open field, like what we see out of RSL more than what we've seen out of like Philly this year, or Red Bull in the past. So I don't know. I just kind of believed the underlyings, and I believe that there were a couple different cooks in the kitchen in St. Louis, right? There was a departed sporting director now who, does come from that attritional sort of German school, but then there's also a City Football Group guy who is supposed to be on the business side, but is maybe also on the sporting side a little bit. And the vision from the technical director, who was one of the interims, is maybe a little bit different. So it's like there was never any clarity with it. And even though I liked a lot of the talent, it was hard to see how it was going to work together. So I was pretty confident going under that one, but I knew you Rubes would go over, even if I set the line 4 points too high.
I want to move on to the next one because I think this one's the last big one.
No, it's not.
The line was swung completely under on. The other ones are failures of overestimating teams that would do better. And it's the Vancouver Whitecaps. We had it 45.5 points. So for reference, that's the same as St. Louis City. 45.5 points would put them right now in 6th in the Western Conference. And they are on the verge of clinching as the top team in the West and could finish on 66 points at the end of the season. On that Vancouver line, me and Tom went under. Doyle went over with a little bit of belief in what they could build. I know for me, going back to it, there was a lot of question mark classic MLS signings that had never worked out before in the Emmanuel Sabis and Jaden Nelsons, even leaning on Ralph Priso in any way that they did. And I feel like I've been burned enough that I was like, you know what? I'm not going to trust this. I'm not going to believe that all of this will land or any of this will land. And little did I know about my sweater. I got a Jesper Sorensen sweater in the mail. I put it on yesterday on Kickback Committee, me and Susanna with Brian Dunseth on that show. Jesper Sorensen is my vote right now for manager of the year and ended up helping this team perform to their best season of all time. And then they added Thomas Mueller.
I would say it's more than just their best season of all time. I think this is one of the great seasons in MLS history. If you look at their first half year before they got absolutely killed by injuries, they had one loss in all competitions until the CCL final, and that was I think a March international date where they were playing the Fire without everybody.
Yep.
Right. They had nobody on their roster, and the Fire were relatively full, and I think that was their only loss across all. Like they beat Saprissa, to open the season. They what they did in the CONCACAF Champions League to get to that final, they were top of the table at like 2.3 points per game at the same time. And then to come out of that and have still more injuries, right? And to have a schedule that was absolutely crammed full, and to have every reason to just see your season go into the tank the way it did for 2017 FC Dallas, 2018 Toronto FC, all on down the line, and instead be here at the end of the year atop the Western Conference, looking like one of the absolute favorites to win MLS Cup, having completely revamped your play style, having developed young players, as young as like 17 coming out of the next pro team, but also guys like Ralph Priso and Jaden Nelson and Seb Berhalter. Like every single box has been checked by Jesper Sorensen and by Axel Schuster in that front office. They are probably my favorite team in the league to watch this 100%. Year.
Me too.
Jesper Sorensen's getting my vote for coach of the year. It is like, this is a team, whether they win another trophy or not, because they've already won Canadian Championship, whether they win MLS Cup or not, this is a team that I will like always remember. Period.
And there'll be a model for teams where the question is like spending. What does spending look like? How can you get better? It's like them and Philadelphia are the example of like cohesion to system, belief in a system, bringing the right pieces in, and then also like creating a platform for people. We've heard about the environment inside of the team, and I think a lot of these players, like the Jaden Nelsons of the world, who have been in up and down situations, feel very comfortable in this group. And the second half of the year, I mean, everything you just talked about, Doyle, first half of the year, unreal, unprecedented. The second half of the year, everyone got hurt. And they have been able to not just maintain, because they've had to make up games, bounce up the table, win the Canadian Championship, which adds a ton of other games, and then continue to push with MLS Next Pro players. I mean, you could argue right now they're missing their starting center forward. They've won games without their MVP candidate from last
all year long,
pretty much the whole year. They're now missing a defender of the year, probably finalist, and Veselinovic maybe was going to be one with the way he's played, and they've been
their
able
tab
to
left
maintain
back.
through all of that.
They sold Pedro Vite in the middle of the season. Like it goes. Like Manuel Sabi has missed time. Jaden Nelson has missed time. Ali
and
Ahmed
on
missed
internationals
all
they've
summer.
missed.
Yeah, so it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. This is the best team I've seen in MLS this year.
And we are
Thomas Muller coming in and just being instantly one of the best players in the league, and how quickly he's fit in with that group, and the vibes around the team that are matching the performances, the results. He's, again, it's been very seamless. I think that there's so much potential in the partnership between him, Gauld, and Brian White, just because they're all smart players and they all work hard. And while you might get worried about Muller and White occupying similar positions, or does this mean that Ryan Gauld's going to have to do even more running or be away from the center of the pitch? They're all just so very smart that the fluidity and the movement and the possession that they're able to hold through the midfield, I'm not worried about. I think that there's a new level that I didn't see when they initially signed Muller, because we didn't know if Ryan Gauld was coming back. And again, there was a couple question marks, and those all got answered immediately. And I will say to Thomas Muller's agent, it doesn't look stupid that the numbers he was asking for before he came here right now. We all kind of laughed at it. It was, oh my God, how much did he want? Well, yeah, I think he's worth it.
Yep.
For this Vancouver team, this is the one team I always remember during COVID. We did the top 4 players of all time, greatest moments, whatever. And Vancouver was just impossible to talk about. There was vibe moments, there was fun, there was Kendall Waston, there was Pedro Morales for a year, but
Jay Demerit, yeah.
Yeah, but there's a chance if you redid this, every player would be from this year's team.
Yes.
And every moment, the Philly 7-0, Miami at home in the CONCACAF Champions semifinal, all these things would end up being the top of the list. And we've not even gotten into the playoffs. Let's move to these next few teams. Some underwhelming ones. Houston Dynamo, 46.5 points. Me and Tom went under. Doyle, you went over. This was one of the teams that was tough to talk about because they sold really late on Mikael and Coco, not as much. And it felt like there was some stuff in the works. None of that stuff came to fruition early enough. And then the ones that did later on seem to have not hit so far. And they are a team still sort of out to sea. So 46.5 points will finish 10 points better than what they will be at. And me and Tom will get that one right. And Doyle will not. And then I want to go to Austin here on the same number, 46.5. Me and Tom went with the over. Doyle went with the under. So Doyle just lost in Texas right now for a little bit in the middle of this exercise. They'll finish on 47.5 points, or they're on 47 now with the potential for more, and they've clinched their spot as 6th in the West. Any big thoughts on those two teams' season so far?
I'll go Austin. Doyle, you can take Houston, but first on Austin, Nico.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Well, you feel very strongly about that. If you want to change, I feel with Austin, I thought it was going to be a different way. I thought it was going to be around Brandon Vasquez and Uzuni and Bukhari. Obviously, Vasquez got injured. Uzuni, the fit has always been awkward this season, and Bukhari has looked more like a wingback than a $7 million winger. Owen Wolff has been the driving force of the attack. He's the only person I trust to really unlock a defense or play the right pass in the final third. Danny Pereira has been incredible, and that defensive structure, I think, while it's not super aesthetic, you need to give Nico Estevez a ton of credit, because that was a hire that was really criticized given how it ended in Dallas, and going the team opting for a rivals coach that just got fired for some of these aesthetic issues and not being able to overcome a bad defense and having to play really cautious, because if they opened up at all in Dallas, they were going to get killed because he just didn't have the players there. So for Nico Estevez to have this team in the playoffs, get to the Open Cup final, again, it hasn't been the most watchable team in the league, but you get the results, and it's just a really positive season.
Doyle, you're not allowed to talk about Austin. You have to talk about Houston now.
All right.
Whatever you want.
We'll talk about Austin next week.
And I think maybe they should go out of their way to stop signing players from overseas. I think they should. No, if you look at how poor the results have been from a lot of the spends that they have made, especially at the top end of the roster.
Does Brandon Vasquez count as overseas?
No, I'm talking about Houston.
Oh, sorry. I thought you had ignored me and gone.
You
Austin.
you literally told me not to talk about.
I thought you had
Austin.
ignored me. Yeah.
You're the CMO, man.
When the CMO speaks, we listen.
Yeah. Okay.
No, Houston should really go out of their way to spend
To be a
window.
possession Colorado Rapids.
I mean, it's not a bad idea, right? And it's like there are guys on the Rapids who are going to be free agents. It's like, hey, Houston could use a guy like that because their overseas scouting and integration of players has been really, really poor. If you think about it, the only hit on DPs or U22s has been Lawrence and Ali, and that's still more theory than practice.
I would argue Ache was a hit, but it's
100%.
not full scouting and unknown player.
Yeah, I mean,
they didn't unearth him.
They had a Rolodex. That's not.
Yeah.
So it's like this line was way too high, and I'm concerned about them going into next season. But my point was that guys like Griff Dorsey, who they got off the scrap heap, or Artur, who they signed as a free agent, or Jack McGlynn, who's a cash for, were all better outcomes than almost anything they've had from their overseas scouting department, other than like Mikhail. That's it.
I think I am worried about the future for both of these teams. Let's move on to the next one, though. The Colorado Rapids, 47.5 points. Me and Tom went with the over. Doyle went with the under. So Doyle is going to be correct on this one. We will not. And I think this prediction wasn't wrong. And the reality leads to, I think, some of the stress I'm seeing from fans of, is Chris Armas the right guy? Is this team performed to their level? Is it down to the timing of moves and the reality of moves, right? Georgie leaving in the middle of the season, and maybe nothing you can do about that, but take some time to then readjust and go out and get Paxton Aronson and build this team again. And the question is if there's belief in this is the right group fully to do it going forward, which I think are all fair. And as you said, there's some free agents. Ted Pietro did not land the way I expected. I think when we did this line, I was probably like all in on that being the big move of the off season.
They're so much better. They're so obviously so much better when he's on the field.
Yeah, but part of that's injury for him. And then
sure,
part of that's
but like even when he's healthy, he's not out there. Like playing Paxton Aronson, or excuse me, Cole Bassett as a winger down the stretch. Me going under on this one was just like frankly not having a ton of belief in Chris Armas, and I think that was the right call.
I muted myself, so okay. Let's go to NYCFC next.
If you touch the button, the green button on the front, that's the mute button. Yeah. Do you want me to send tech support to you? Because they were really helpful for me.
Potentially.
Today.
By the way, we did the Musa thing on Cash First. I don't think this will happen, but Hafa Navahu would be one if I was a team that was like, I'll drop a bunch of money on a player with a little bit of a known quantity. He would be one that I would be looking at, and that probably
costs like $10 million.
Yeah, but you're going to go out and spend $10 million outside the league on a player, and are they going to be better or more productive? And we haven't really seen him consistently with guys who also are talented.
I'm expecting him to go back to Brazil this winter.
Oh, really?
Okay.
For good money.
All right.
That's the expectation. Nothing that's said or agreed or anything.
And I'm expecting him to be back. I'm expecting him to be back in MLS 18 months after that.
On a TAM deal on loan for RSL. NYCFC, 49.5 points was the line. Me and Tom went under. Doyle went over. Doyle, you are the only one who was correct on this line. So the Pascal Janssen stock that you've been holding for a while comes through for you.
It was less about that than it was about the spine. Like, I thought the spine of this team was obviously very good. And that was enough for me to say, probably 50 points. And then I also believed in Alonso Martinez. He's actually he's closing in on 20 goals, but he could have 24 if he hit his numbers. So there was enough here. I don't know why you guys what was your rationale in going under that?
Maxi Morales was their literally only good creative player or proven creative player at this time of setting that line.
That was the explanation there. The next one is Orlando City, 51.5 points.
Jesus Christ, dude.
There you go. I'm here for it. 51.5 points. All three of us went under. So all three of us are incorrect in this one. I don't remember where this full stress was on this one with Orlando at this point in the offseason. I would say even going over, that we're not sitting at a point where it's a good season yet for Orlando.
Yeah, it's unfortunate how they've kind of backslid here with some injuries and just some like hot and cold with Luis Muriel has been the tale of the season with the attack for as good as Ojeda and Pasalic have been. This is a team that it's unfortunate that they could end up here in the wild card game, on 53 points or whatever. So again, I do think in a different year, they're sitting on the same point total, but in fifth or whatever, right? Like just the East is such a gauntlet. It's difficult, but I think this team is set up well for the future. Muriel's not going to be here long term. That'll be an open DP spot. I really like a lot of the pieces throughout this team, and the continued success shouldn't be overlooked for what is this, 6 years in a row or whatever in the playoffs, 5 years in a row, and they've just been a good team throughout it. And maybe they had a higher ceiling than they've achieved this year. I think that this is just a solid, good team.
So this line was exactly where they finished last year. They were 52 points last year. You set this line at 51.5, and then they were fourth last year. So they're going to go over last year and finish anywhere between 2 to 4 spots worse in the standings, which is partially what the Eastern Conference is and the reality. And I think my assumption when this happened was like, even if they replace Facu Torre as well, and some of the holes that I thought existed at center back, which I still think exist, and if Jensen's out, it gets even worse going into the postseason. And Pasalic has been one of the newcomers of the year. So they nailed that. They got a little bit more than Muriel than they got last year. And I think a lot of that has helped buoy this team. And yet we have Michele doing like full on appeals to Pareja on the show on Monday, being like, this club needs to progress and something needs to continue to get better. You could argue it did. They're one of the weirdest teams to assess in all of this. Charlotte, 52.5 points was the next one that we had. All three of us went on the over on this one. Doyle, feels like you set a pretty good line with this.
I don't know. In retrospect, it should have been 2 or 3 points higher. I feel like I didn't give you guys enough to think about on this one because they were 54-point team last year or something like that.
51 last year.
Oh, all right.
And
so
they're 56 now, but if they
I did
beat
raise
Philly,
it
then
a little bit.
Out. Yeah.
They have defensive depth. They have an excellent goalkeeper, though he has been more up and down this season. This was actually, I think, when I'm doing it next year, I'm going to have to factor in Westwood's age and health, because if he's, with Adelson Malanda gone and Westwood now, 36, something like that, it could end up falling apart pretty quickly, but they've been a good team.
The next team we had in here was the New York Red Bulls.
Oh,
at 52.5 points, and all three of us went with the over on the MLS Cup finalists coming out of the year.
I hate myself for that. I knew they were absolute frauds.
Was this a Timo Werner vote?
No, and we were probably critical / questioning of the Triple Moteng signing, and he's been good, right? Like he hasn't been, top of the end elite, but he's been a good DP. Like that has been a good signing, and everything else has fallen apart. Alexander Hack, the resume, the pedigree looked good, and then sometimes a guy like that just is an abomination in MLS, and it's difficult to really.
I actually think, by the way, now this is like a long track record of Bundesliga defenders struggling in Major League Soccer. There is a weird jump there.
I have Timo Baumgartel highlights playing in my head as you're saying that. He needed more tactical schooling. I just the run the Red Bulls made to MLS Cup last year.
A fluke.
In hindsight, absolutely. But also their points per game and their underlying numbers when Emil Forsberg played.
Yeah.
That didn't feel fluky. The run to MLS Cup did, because it completely changed their play style. I don't know if you guys remember this, but they became a complete bunker and counter team down the stretch and into the playoffs. And Sandro Schwartz was saying, he's like, this is how you win in tournament play. And it's like, I disagree, but he's the guy who was coaching in MLS Cup, so what the fuck do I know? But he did not bring that into this season at all. He tried to evolve the team in the way that BJ Callahan has evolved Nashville. Still, if you told me that Emil Forsberg was going to play 2,500 minutes and they were going to sign a DP center forward who scored 17 goals, I'd say, yeah, 55 points
I would have put my mortgage on the over. If you told me that Emil Forsberg's at just under 2,800 minutes right now, I would have. I would have. This would have been something like this. Minnesota, Philly were the ones that I just would have been absolutely.
So here's the thing: do we think this is all game model and Lewis Morgan getting hurt, right? Because they never had anything.
They had no verticality.
Yeah, they had nothing coming in off the wings, which was brutal for them all year long.
Coming into the year, if you were relying on Lewis Morgan, I think that's questionable roster building. And that's like I voted this guy as a bounce back player, MVP, preseason, whatever it was a few years ago. That's like not a knock on his soccer. I think the other thing was Isla is good enough to be the like center of everything. And I think there's a feeling there when Reyes left then that like, oh, we should be more possession because he's a good passer. Mm-hmm. And then it doesn't fit Sean Nealis and doesn't really fit the midfield. And then Hack was a huge miss. But I
believe Tom called him an abomination. Yeah. That was the word that Tom used.
But my big thing coming out of the playoffs was like they had an attacking force in transition of 2.5 players that you could rely on. And they went into this year with 2.5 players. And the idea of like, okay, let's add to that never happened for them. And I think that's the frustration for a lot of it. And then some of the other stuff fell apart. Carlos Coronel, free agent, right?
Yeah, I would sign him in a heartbeat.
For any style of team or specifically?
Yeah. Was Dante Van Zier the straw that stirred the drink?
Yikes.
I would if I was DC United, my first move of the offseason would be signing Carlos Coronel to a 3-year contract. So.
Sean Johnson can explain to him the experience and what it's like and what it could lead to, but you get paid, maybe it's the opportunity you want. Let's move to the next one that we all got right. Minnesota United, 53.5. All three of us went over. Doyle, do you regret this number?
I mean, obviously, we all went over and we were all correct. It's too low. They were so ridiculous on the set pieces and long throws through most of the season. They were getting a goal a week off of long throws for like the entire spring. It was absurd. And it was fun. Like getting to watch a team do something completely different and kind of break the meta, and it's been really influential. Shout out to our guy John Muller. He had an excellent column in The Guardian mid-season talking about how this team is like outside the entire curve, top right Minnesota United when it comes to long throws.
Game's so back, mate.
The entire world, this is the team that is most dedicated to taking long throws. And you could see the number of long throws creeping up in MLS week after week after week. And then an article comes out and it shoots up across the league. It's wild. But it's like they have a really good defense. They have a style of play that I don't entirely love, but they are committed to it. And if you get buy-in 1 through 30 on the roster to that degree, you're going to win games on the margins. That's what they've been doing almost all year long.
I think when we did this, I would have guessed that Yeboah had the season that Pereira's had, and
shout out Wes Burdine sending me 1,000 texts before the preseason saying, "What do you think that Yeboah's gonna win? Do you think he's gonna win Golden Boot? Kelly, does he have a chance at MVP? No, Wes, he does not."
But
Taniolo O'Shea, a little optimistic.
But Taniolo O'Shea starts in La Liga, which is a whole nother situation. And it's been a fascinating year for Minnesota United. They feel like a team that's built for the playoffs. In saying that, they lost at home to Austin in an Open Cup semifinal with the opportunity to host the final, which is the big opportunity that I thought would prove that
Minnesota needs to win this weekend. Like they need to go into the postseason with a little bit of momentum because they have lost their way since that loss in the Open Cup semifinals. Was it semis or quarters?
Semis.
The semis against Austin. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they won, they would have hosted the final.
Yeah.
Minnesota, they can't fall down from fourth. They're on 58 points, but with a win, depending on what goes on in front of them, they could jump to third. They could still jump to second if San Diego fails to win in their final game against Portland. If San Diego ties, Minnesota, the highest they could go is third, but either way, as Doyle said,
I mean, getting out of that fourth spot as well, just so you don't
not playing the Sounders 3 times in a playoff series.
Yeah, I think they would be playing the Sounders twice, to be honest with you.
That would be probably the first round matchup I'd be most excited about.
Yeah, it would be a pretty special one. Let's go to a couple teams that maybe won't be in the playoffs, but we had up in the top 6 on this standings. We start with one that will be the Columbus Crew, 53.5. All 3 of us went under. This is the last team that's still open. So we're waiting on this final weekend to see whether or not we are correct or not. Columbus on 51 points. So they would need to win this weekend to jump over this number. Either way, feels like it's pretty close.
Before we give ourselves credit for all possibly being right, we all also said, like, no, they're going to be really good when it comes to the playoffs. Like, this is more of a regular season thing, and they're going to be a contender for sure in the playoffs. And the opposite's going to happen. Like, they might go over the number if they win here, and I don't think any of us are taking them as a serious cup contender.
I want to push back on that a little bit, but it's tough. What I'll say is if they play on decision day and then in the playoffs the way they played their last 2 outings, man, nobody's going to have fun. Nobody's going to have fun going up against this team, even if they really only have 1 goal scorer at this point.
They are limping to the finish line. Again, just to stress this, if they finish on 54 points, they would have been 4th last year in the Eastern Conference, and they might finish on 54 points and still finish in a wild card game this year, which is the change around them that they can't really control, even though they've been underwhelming for large stretches of the season. The next 2 are the big ones. Atlanta United, 54.5 points. Tom with the over, and David and Doyle with the under.
Oh my God. What could I have put the number at before you were like, no, I
don't know.
He's the scoops guy. He loves the signing.
I'm so in on this, man.
Was it because you were reading Tom Bogert from Give Me Sport saying that Atlanta United have won the offseason? Do you just like copy and paste that every single year?
I think I even went meta too, where I was like, I know that we've said Atlanta United are back before and we've always been dumb, but no, they're actually really back this time. You guys are idiots. I'm enlightened. Oh my God.
Mean, to be fair, I thought that they were going to finish on like 53 points. It's not like I thought that they would be winning the wooden spoon this weekend.
Listen, Garth Lagerwey, one of the best sporting executives in league history. Chris Henderson, widely respected. They had so much success together in Seattle. They have one of the most robust front offices and scouting departments because they spend a lot of money on this, and they like all of that is great. Head coach, they bring in a former MLS Cup winner. On the field, they spend, again, literally more money than anybody has ever spent before. They rework kind of everywhere on the pitch. Miguel Almiron comes home. It's all beautiful. The one-time league record signing is getting benched by Jamal Tiari. Going to go on a limb and say this hasn't quite worked out as we kind of thought for Emmanuel Latsela. Everybody seems to hate each other. Mateus Click, 4th DP, gone by midseason. They complete defensive overhaul in the summer, and it didn't get any better, literally at all. Is there one positive thing from the season? Legitimately, is there one positive thing? Hibbert?
Maybe Hibbert, maybe Cooper Sanchez, but like you have to squint to find anything
unbelievable.
At all. Yeah.
So if they spent upwards of $50 million on their 3 DPs, and this is taking away salary because Miguel Almiron is one of the highest paid players in the league, and so is Rancho Latte. I think all 3 of them are top 10. If they were to try to sell those 3 players this winter, and I'm going to assume that at least 2 of them they're going to try to sell, if they spent $50 million on fees, what do you think they would get back? 15? And like, I'm not saying that as like I'm being that is a like 20 maybe. Like
20 seems like a lot.
Yeah.
20 seems like a lot.
I can't
unless it's like
imagine
one of those desperate championship teams. Like I think Sheffield United is in like the relegation zone.
They
like,
rehired Chris Wilder for the 19th time.
Right, or Southampton or something like that. Like they say, Latte Loth, he's a proven goal scorer. We know he could do it, on a rainy Wednesday in Coventry. So like, here's 15 million quid, mate. Like that is their only get out of jail free card. I never in a million years thought it was going to be this bad.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. And again, the path forward. Again, I think it's got to start with the coaching change, and then it's got to start with who do we need to pay to, like, can we send Alexi Maranchuk highlights to, I don't know, Turkey?
You get 2 buyouts, which one is money you have to eat on some of these bigger ones. You also have TAM players on this roster that you don't want on this roster. So it can't just be DPs, which I think makes things more complicated. My guess is Latte Loth is back next year, because if you had any belief in him, I don't know, you got to try it and see what you can get.
I would too under a new coach, honestly.
And I don't think Almiron you really can move. Like, where is he going to want to go that's going to pay anything? So that one you're kind of stuck with. But there's a lot.
Use the U22 slots. I know Garth Lagerway is on the record saying that, like, these aren't like we shouldn't be looking at this as like high leverage. Like, you know, there's so many rolls of the dice. Take a roll of the dice. They have all 3 spots open because Edwin Mosquera is on loan. It can't hurt.
Yeah.
So for me,
it can though. It can though.
Well, like, it's just opportunity cost.
Like, it's not going to make things worse, Doyle. They might win the spoon.
So
they might win the
move on
Mateus
from Maranchuk
2025.
Move on from Maranchuk. Use the cash for. Don't try to go out of the league again, I guess. Like, I don't know, pick whoever your favorite 10 is that could be attainable, or you think could be attainable, because I don't think we thought George Mihailovic was. Again, people, like, agents kind of speculating, like, what do you think it would cost to get Hani Mukhtar from Nashville? I was like, I don't think that there's a number, but, like, I didn't think that there was a number for Mihailovic. So I think you just start calling all your, like, the players you like most in the league and say, hey, what would it cost here? And that's a good way to start with the floor. And then I guess you just hope that pick 2 out of the 5 center backs that they signed are good, and then pick 2 of the 5 midfielders that they signed are good. And, like, it's still a lot of ifs and a lot of hopes. And even with, like,
so they're going to buy out 6 players on 2 buyouts.
Well, that's the thing. Like, that's why I'm saying you have to hope that any two of those position groups work, because, like, I think there's 1 defender on loan, and then again, pretty much you're locked into a lot of these deals.
Columbus fans are trying to ship Gazdag there right now, which I don't think will make things any better for this team. Before we move on, real quick, congratulations to Brad Guzan on an incredible career.
Yes.
A fellow bald, one of the heroes of the community, and has been for a while. I'd argue his Chivas USA team is one of my favorite teams in Major League Soccer history to watch. Came in same draft as Sasha Kleshin, right? Both of them came.
Wow.
I think so, or maybe the year before. I think it was the year before Sasha.
Maybe.
Chivas USA doesn't get enough love. Huh?
No, not at all. Mark Delgado, the loan, I think.
Zavaleta
and
still...
Eric Zavaleta.
Yeah.
And Eric Zavaleta, yeah. Still hanging on from all of that, but, U.S. national team player, big-time player in Europe. I went and saw his Aston Villa team play a UEFA Cup game against a Lithuanian side in Birmingham one time, and everyone was really nice to me because at the time they liked Randy Lerner as their owner because he was going to save them, and Brad Guzan as their goalkeeper. So it was a good week for me in Birmingham, hanging out, having an American accent for one time only. Let's move on to our second most depressing team here. The LA Galaxy, 54.5 points. Me and Tom with the under. Doyle, you both set this line and you went to over.
Right? It just felt like they won MLS Cup without Ricky. They had Marco Royce. They had figured something out with the defense because they played that high line with Emiro Garces. They only asked him to defend in the open field. They weren't asking him to defend in the box. They had some exciting young players, like Edwin Cerrillo had come along. John McCarthy was really good last year, and none of it worked. They did not win their first game in any competition this year until June 1st. They lost a game. You guys remember this? They lost a game this year in which they did not allow a shot. Not a shot on goal. They did not allow a shot, and they still lost 1-0 to a Sporting Kansas City team that is just terrible. It's the weirdest half season I've ever seen any team have. The second is, since they won that game on June 1st, across all competitions, they are 10 wins, 8 losses, 6 draws, plus 8 goal differential. They have qualified for the CONCACAF Champions Cup by finishing 3rd in the Leagues Cup. And they gave Toluca hell. Toluca's a wagon. They gave Toluca hell in the Campeones Cup, only fell apart over the last 8-10 minutes of that game. They developed guys finally like Elijah Winder, Harbor Miller, Chris Rindov, who was really good in Ventura County, and they're like, finally, Greg Vanney was like, oh, I guess I can use guys who are good next pro. It turns out he's good in MLS too. So I think
that's been a long-standing frustration,
right? There's
within the team.
Yeah, understandably, there is reason to be optimistic again about the Galaxy, especially with Ricky coming back. It's just like, holy shit, man. The first 4 months of the season, they were the worst team on the planet.
They won MLS Cup without Ricky. He had to give up his ACL to get them there. And then turns out they beat a team who also did make the playoffs, and we fully overestimated on. And they did so on the back of an all-time performance from Gaston Brugman, who's not even in the club anymore. So it turns out, yes, a lot of that stuff went down the drain. And maybe Maya Yoshida won't age as well. And maybe if you replace John McCarthy for no reason with a goalkeeper who has a negative post-shot XG, that things might go down the drain. And the LA Galaxy, competitive with Atlanta United for the most underwhelming season this year, although they may have kept FC Dallas out of the playoffs in the end.
I don't think it's at all competitive with Atlanta United. It's not. The Galaxy, because the Galaxy had a really good second half of the season, and Ricky's coming back, and like there's a clear pathway to them being a 60-point team next year.
Yeah, we think that they're going to be totally fine, not just fine, like good next year, like pretty immediately, and because of the knock-on effect that Ricky has on so many players.
Yeah. The last four we have here.
And because they're not going to go out and sign Zaka again.
Well, they may not have to, which is part of what makes things better. They were up against this cat monster as a winning team that had poorly set up their roster going into that. And now they've been able to reset some things and move things on. LAFC, 56.5 points was the next team. Me and Tom went with the under. Doyle, you went with the over.
Why did you guys go with the under?
I have no idea. That's what I was about to look at.
All the competitions they were playing in, that's a really high number. I figured that. So, again, we're losing on this one, but like they're not going to top the conference.
The process was good. The process was good.
I still believe that. I still believe that. Like,
Doyle, if they win, are you sad about this number? Because you'll be 6 points off if they win this weekend.
The number was good because you Rubes went under. Like, that's the whole point. It's not to get closest to the final score. It's like, can you get the stupid money?
We didn't know.
House, I got the stupid money.
We didn't know that Steve Cherundolo was going to do a full, like, win one for the Gipper in the middle of the season.
Right?
And say, like, just to save the season, I am going to announce that I'm leaving this club.
But also, though,
it also helped that they signed the most expensive player in MLS.
That's been good. But also, like, they evolved the game model a little bit. Like, they're a team that uses possession much better this year than they have, I think, since 2022.
Yeah.
They were, like, John Thornton is one of the 2 or 3 best CSOs in the league because it's not just going out and, like, yeah, we're in LA, we could sign Son. It's also, like, Nkosi Tafari is really good. And it's not working for him in Dallas, and we could steal him. And there were 28 other MLS clubs that could have done that. LAFC is the one who did it. And if you watch look at what's happened since Aaron Long got hurt, like Nkosi Tafari looks exactly like, even better than he did a couple of years ago when he played his way into a national team camp. Stealing Mark Delgado. Again, there were 28 other teams who could have taken Mark Delgado.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean,
Give him a new contract.
They definitely had the inside track because he's an LA kid, but like he didn't want to leave the Galaxy, man.
Right.
And wherever he goes, his team wins. So like, they're just really, really good. And I was betting on the infrastructure more than on the high end talent. And it turns out though that the high end talent is absolutely incredibly. Well, they were going to end up on 55, 58 points, even if they hadn't signed Son. Because, like,
that feels unlikely. Son and Bouanga set the record for 2 goal contributions over a 9-game period.
They were going to get 1 million points out of those games anyway, because that's what LAFC does when they hit the soft part of the schedule.
RSL midweek.
Every single year. If you look at, there's like a 7-game winning streak every single year for LAFC, and it's like, oh, they were just beating all the teams that suck ass 5-2. So it's like it was just a little more so this year because they have some, he and Bouanga have this like telepathy.
The real proof of John Thornton's ability is that he signed Matthew Schweinmeier. Like that is one of those. That's a world-class player that he was able to steal off the cap and bring in to change the reality of this club. All right, let's finish up here. Our last three. We have the Seattle Sounders at 59.5 points, and we have FC Cincinnati at 59.5 points. We all went over on both of these. So we are all incorrect on Seattle. We are all correct on Cincinnati. On the Seattle side, I think the Club World Cup and Leagues Cup is a portion of this. Injuries are a portion of this as well. As Tom likes to keep saying, I'll still trust the process. If Seattle Sounders wins 2025 MLS Cup, I will not be surprised. And that's the team that they have set up right now.
I would agree. This is like they went deep. They obviously winning Leagues Cup, having the Club World Cup. That was a lot over the summer, and injuries picked up and rolled on now with the national team, which has been awesome to see. But it was just too much to kind of overcome on a week-to-week basis in MLS, and particularly now that like they've. I don't know how long they've really been locked into the 5th seed, but it's not like they're really jockeying for position over the last several weeks here.
I mean, they were up until Leagues Cup, and I think they put everything they had emotionally into that Leagues Cup final, and then I thought coming out of that it was either going to go. They were going to blaze through the remainder of the schedule and just take that momentum, or there was going to be a letdown. And obviously, there was going to be a letdown. And so,
4-game winless run there from and starting.
And that's when they fell out of the race for like second or third. In the conference. But this team, look, going into the season, the argument was for their week to week consistency more so than their top end talent, and what they showed is that they have the top end talent to go out and win a trophy again. But the week to week consistency, because of the injuries and because they were getting pulled in one direction with the Club World Cup and then another direction with Leagues Cup, the week to week consistency was really hard to find. That said, like there's just not a better org. There's just not a better org in this league at all of the above, right? They just like. I don't know, like LAFC.
Say his name. Say Paul Rothrock's name. Say it right now.
Tom, what are the chances that Paul Rothrock is on the Sounders next year?
I don't know, man. I think a lot of teams should be trying to get him, and I think Seattle should obviously be trying to re-sign him. I'm very curious to see how that one plays out here.
Yeah.
The only question on the org stuff is the Jesus Ferreira. I mean, Paul Arriola, there was nothing they could do about. He got hurt. Of whether they made the right calls on those players. But inside of the restrictions they had, they did as well as they could. I guess me questioning better org is, I would include ownership in organization. And while they're stable and consistent, they did not take a risk to try and get massively better for the Club World Cup.
Oh, see, I disagree.
Ryan Kent, mate.
I just think in terms of getting Ferreira and Arriola, that was the risk they took. But it was a smart calculated. It was a smart and calculated one because it did keep the floor high, and it was a way of soaking up those minutes. And what we've seen from the way they played at the Club World Cup and then the way they played at Leagues Cup, they might have a higher ceiling than anybody in MLS.
And they because of Jordan Morris hitting those bonuses, they did not have an open DP spot to go spend $10 million, even if they wanted to. And again, they weren't going to your point, though, Cos.
And that's where I
still
think if you look at this and you say, if Albert Rusnak is the DP 10 that you're going to sign, it's a different stratosphere, and it didn't give you a chance to potentially push through a Club World Cup group that they played really well in. And that was top-end talent that they didn't have to get over the line. And maybe if Jordan Morris is healthy, they do, and I'm wrong about all of this. But whatever. Let's talk about this next week when we get into Seattle more. Let's finish off FC Cincinnati, 59.5 points. We all went over. And Inter Miami was the top team in your ratings at 65.5. Tom went under, and me and Doyle went over.
Absolute casuals, of course. The lamestream media is just looking at Miami blind over. You could have set that at 79 points. You clowns would have went over.
Okay. Cincinnati finishes on 62, which I guess means we all got that one right.
Yeah.
On that one,
And weirdly, since it's like,
yeah,
I don't feel
not the
I don't
season
feel
we would have expected.
I don't feel right calling it like disappointing, but like it just never has felt like they've hit what their peak is like, the entire season.
Oh, not
Again,
even close.
Those defensive numbers, I think, is what's most jarring. Like even like again, like things being a little bit slower and clunkier in the attack. Like it's not quite what we thought, but again, for me, like I thought that they would be absolutely choking teams defensively, and that it wouldn't matter if they were putting up huge like XG numbers because every game it's either a shutout or one goal against, and it just hasn't really played like that, and that's been a surprise for me. And I keep continued to say all season, like no, like they're just gonna find it. It makes too much sense for it to not happen. Well, around the last match day of the season, they have not found that.
Yeah,
we could be looking at a second round playoff series between these two teams right now. Cincinnati ahead on total wins on 62 points, tied between second and third in the Eastern Conference. So Cincinnati control the destiny
And
there
home to Montreal
host
this
that
weekend.
game. And home to Montreal. So the ability to host that game, which would be a one-game knockout at that point. Someone give me recognition that what I said was correct about the MLS playoff format that I'm not sure of right
Yes.
now.
Yes.
Thank you.
That'll happen in somewhere in like January when we get around to.
And we'll be here to cover all of it on Soccer Wise. We're very excited for the postseason. Genuinely excited for it to just start. And Inter Miami, 65.5. They won't be able to hit that mark. As Tom said, me and Doyle went with the over. Tom went with the under. If they win this weekend, would be half point below that. So Doyle, I think that was a pretty good line coming out of last year into Messi's third year as head coach and sporting director of Inter Miami as he continues to build that roster going forward. All right. That is our review of all things over-under. We were going to talk about next-gen white pages in college soccer for a little. Remember when I was like, oh, we'll do some teams quickly? And then it's like an hour and 20 minutes later.
That was never going to happen.
That was never going to happen, and I shouldn't have been as hopeful as I was about it. If you have not seen this, go out and just Google next-gen white pages. It is a group of consultants that was put together with a lot of people who represent different parties in the world of soccer. Like you have agents, you have people who are executives across USL and MLS, US soccer. You have coaches, you have people who are just professionals outside of the sport who played college soccer. There is a gap. There is no players on it, and this is not a governing body. So this is purely recommendations coming. But U.S. Soccer put this together as a way to try and drive a potential fix for college soccer or a potential save of college soccer, however you want to word it, as college sports continue to change. And I think for many people, college soccer has become less relevant to the pyramid and structure in the U.S. as well as the development pipeline. We had Sasha Sorofsky and Brian Weiss on this show a couple weeks ago in an interview, which I'd say go back and listen to. They got a chance to talk about it. Doyle, I know this is something we've discussed, and I know it's something that we are both super interested in. Tom wishes that I had pressed the stop button 30 seconds ago.
No.
And got
Let the boys cook.
Got him out of here. Overall, the recommendations are kind of what we expected. One of the big ones is that players get a second chance at college soccer. So players can sign MLS Next Pro or homegrown deals at a younger age. And if it doesn't work out, can then go and play in college soccer, which is something that foreign players sort of can do right now, but Americans can't, which has been bizarre and has led to the Marshalls and Vermonts of the world winning national titles with mainly international teams. There is the fall spring schedule. So splitting the schedule out, which makes less games at one time.
That is the biggest one. That is the biggest one, period. If college soccer goes from, and I think Sasha talked about it, right? Sasha and Brian talked about it. Like if college soccer starts going from, late August to, late November, early December, and then you take December, January off, and then you start up again with 2.5 weeks of training camp in February, and then go February to late April, you get 28, 30 games with a week in between. You give the kids time to actually be student athletes. You get them more training.
Yeah.
You get them more time between games, which is all that is better physically. And it's better in terms of technical and tactical schooling. And it's just getting the NCAA to care about that. Getting the NCAA to say, oh, it doesn't, like, it's not 1912. We can have two parts of the calendar for the same sport. And like everything else, it pales in comparison to getting that done.
Yeah, I would say the contract stuff is big.
Me too.
Because
Fair. Yeah.
it gives a huge opening to domestic players and gives this opportunity, which should exist, which is at this point with NIL, these players are borderline professional across all sports. And soccer is set up where you come out of a professional academy. To me, one of the biggest things about college soccer is there are 213 high-level sports programs that you shouldn't just flush down a toilet. There are training facilities and coaching staffs and fan bases. There's everything. We will never find every player all the time. And there could be people who are negative about our youth structure and say it's because we're bad at what we do. But look at the German national team. Look at the English national team. Players fall through the cracks. Having as many nets as you can to catch those players seems like a really good thing to do. Yeah. And that doesn't even include future coaches and refs or executives who care about soccer, who will have a long-time soccer career that they can then tap back into and help grow the game, or people that just become passionate about the sport and teach their kids about it or coach their kids, whatever it is. We're talking about 213 soccer facilities and setups that could exist. And if you bring in all these players, you take away a lot of the jeopardy of deciding, do I want to sign a homegrown deal for $32,000 when I'm 16 years old because a pro team tells me I should, and then ruin the opportunity to go to college afterwards on a scholarship or play college soccer, which is also an experience. Brianna Pinto was on our show. She's from Raleigh. She's like, my dream was to play for UNC women's soccer team. Like, there wasn't pro in there. That was my dream. And that should be the case for some players. And it shouldn't have to be this like rock and hard place conversation and discussion, which obviously is how I feel about all of this. But the season stuff is massive. A player gets hurt, an ankle injury, 2.5 weeks. They miss 5-7 games in that 3-week span. And then how do you assess them as a pro team and what's their future and all of that is like a ridiculous setup to have. All right.
No notes.
No, thank you. The other big thing is the regionalization of it, which Brian Weiss said is the big part of the selling point to NCAA. It will make it cheaper. So instead of playing a Big Ten, which now has UCLA and I don't know, name another school on the East Coast. I don't know who's in these conferences. Is Rutgers a Big Ten team?
Yes.
Instead of having that, it will just be regionalized. It will come out of conferences. There will be this pro rel inside of this, which the internet's going to be stoked about that phrase and the ability to do that. Well, you'll have elite local teams and then regionalized local teams. And there is, my understanding is would be an ability to bounce between them based off performances.
And it's also just better. Look, as a UConn fan, I went through the de-regionalization of watching my sports teams when,
your rivals are Houston, Tulsa, and Tulane.
Exactly. It sucked. Like, there were no traveling fans. There were, like, the games didn't matter, and you felt it even as a fan. And if you talk to any of the players in any of the sports from that era, they felt it too. And then, 5 years ago, getting back into the Big East and, the hockey team getting part of America, like all of that, suddenly you get the feeling that the games matter again. And that is a huge thing for development of high-level players. Is like, it can't just be like, what's your Taka score? Like, the dude sitting in the Balkans deciding whether or not your first touch is good. Like, you need to play in games where you have to win. You have to have that competitive edge. It can't just all be technique. And I think some of that has been a little bit lost. And I think that's another thing that speaks to like Vermont played 20 games against their next door neighbors last year, just because that's the conference that they're in. And you saw that come through in winning time in the NCAA tournament. That's my soapbox. I guess I did have notes.
Nice. Two, I think of the more controversial pieces that might come out of this. And again, this isn't rules. These are just recommendations. One is this thought of turning this into this U23 league that plays other teams outside of college soccer. So there is a recommendation for like this spring tournament where you bring MLS Next Pro or USL League One or reserve teams from overseas over. And there's talk about that on the women's side as well, which, by the way, most of this is recommendations for men's soccer, not women's soccer, because it lives in a different existence. And from the people I've talked to on the women's soccer side, they're like, we're fine. Like, the SEC is like the 4th best soccer league on the planet right now.
Yeah.
Like, we're not the ones who need to be fixed. There's some Title IX stuff in there as well, where there's funding that you get and it matches across college football, which is the big money maker, and you have equal roster spots and scholarships and all of that. I think there can be tweaks to make sure we're developing the best players through the women's game, but I can understand people on that side saying, like, let's see how this works for you, a schedule shift, an eligibility shift, whatever, and then we can start to test it and bring it onto our side. That's one of them. And then I believe there's another piece in which players can go sort of play with pro teams for the summer, which is what you see in USL2, but those are not fully professional teams. There's some positives, but I'm pretty sure it's illegal to have unpaid interns.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you want to see a player, you want them to trial, you want to get them to know, you want to get to know them. That's all great. I don't know that you get free labor to run an MLS Next Pro League that players don't really want to play in and doesn't pay enough. And your excuse is, well, these guys want an opportunity and want to show themselves. Anything else? Any other notes?
So, guys, tell me if this is not possible or just really, really dumb. Could there be a scenario in which college teams can be entered into the U.S. Open Cup?
Sasha said on this show, so I'm glad you listened. Appreciate that. It would be impossible because of the schedule right now, because college teams won't play in the summer, and Open Cup goes through the summer.
Yeah. All right.
In the idea,
cool.
and then I think Sasha made a joke about flipping the schedule faster than MLS, which would be amazing after all the years MLS has had this conversation.
They're still working through the data.
If it happened, the way these rules are being set up in this NIL era and all of this, there is the possibility to put college teams on a field with full professionals and it not ruin eligibility. So you could start to find ways, which is what this tournament I think is supposed to be in the spring, is like, let's shift college soccer from its own entity into the pyramid and say, we are the best quote unquote reserve or U23 league in this country. And Sasha's argument would be in the world, because it would be really the only one with backing of UNC and
College Soccer Club World Cup. FIFA's going to step in and get it going.
That's all we need. Tom, we're actually probably going to add like 30 more games to the season because, more games.
Round one of the NCAA tournament is going to be best of 9.
Yeah. The 98 team tournament. We've got brackets coming out on the MLS, USL, and NWSL side as the playoffs approach. Thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you to anyone who made it through to the end of this conversation. Shout out to the college soccer sickos who were like, I got to get to the college soccer.
Goss said 90 minutes. Goss said 90 minutes, and I took the over. So that's another one.
I think I've blown through like 3 meetings while we've been on when we said we would start at X time, which we didn't. And then we would said it would be quick. So
it's a good day.
Doyle, always fun to have you here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Subscribe to the Substack.
Boom. Tom with the mic drop right at the end. Thank you to all of you for listening. Thank you to everyone who was in the chat interacting with us this whole time. We'll talk to you all again.
See you all in the Discord.